Hi there. I'm a software engineer with over 9 years of professional experience, and today I'll be exploring why I don't want self-driving cars yet. First, the promise of self-driving cars really does sound quite amazing. Even things as small as stress-free grocery trips or being able to nap on long rides would be a vast improvement for my personal quality of life and for everyone who commutes. It is obvious that being able to have a self-driving car would greatly improve their experience every single day. However, I've done software development for a long time. Specifically, I have done software development for a bank for a long time. That experience has taught me that software bugs are inevitable. And one of the primary reasons that we see them is that we rush ourselves to a deadline, usually a more or less arbitrary deadline. So, obviously, people's money is not literally the same as people's lives, but it is the closest that we can get. If something goes wrong with someone's checking account, it really does have major negative effects on their life. I know how vital it can be to avoid a bug, and how no matter how much you try, no matter how much effort you put forth, they do just happen. It's part of being human. Lots of them can be caught during the development phase or during the quality check phases of software development, but sometimes they get to production. It just happens. It's part of the job. And when you have that perspective and you think about a self-driving car where you literally have to program in morality, when you literally have to say, in this situation, who lives and who dies, it becomes much, much more intense and much, much, much more important to do everything possible to prevent bugs, which means slow down production as much as possible. Obviously, don't stop entirely because we can't make progress if we stop entirely. But if we rush self-driving cars into production, people will literally die. And that is just a fact. And even when we program everything perfectly, programming morality is not exactly a small task. Making that decision, even in a hypothetical of who lives and who dies, is difficult. How do we decide whose morality to use? How do we figure out the one right way to do ethics? Because while I think there are certain things about ethics that are very widely agreed upon and obvious, such as the ultimate core of, suffering is bad and therefore causing suffering is bad, all of the little nuances, whose suffering might matter more in what situations, how do we give priority to some lives over others when there is no ultimately good choice? There's a reason that ethics is a whole field all on its own. And even if we conquer all of that, even if we can solve ethics, which we've been trying to do as a species for thousands of years, even if we solve all of that, there's still the fact that most likely self-driving cars are not going to be adopted overnight. In the utopic version in my head, if every car were a self-driving car that could perfectly communicate with every other self-driving car, then most likely almost every accident involving two vehicles, two or more realistically, can be avoided. However, getting from where we are now to that state is almost definitely impossible to happen overnight. And as long as even one person wants to drive their own classic vehicle, all they have to do is one thing that the self-driving car's software can't predict, and that could cause an accident. If self-driving cars become a thing, if they become prevalent, inevitably there will eventually be a bug or a deliberate programming choice that causes someone to die. And in that, when that happens, who ends up being responsible? Who ends up being accountable? If it is legitimately a software bug, then it is obviously, in my opinion, the programmer's fault. But there was not an intent to cause harm. So, how do we build in these systems that are fair and also just? Because, in my opinion, it would not be fair or just to hold a programmer accountable for murder when all they did was make an honest mistake. And it also isn't fair to hold the driver accountable because they weren't actually the one driving, they were just in the vehicle. Is it fair to hold the manufacturer of the vehicle accountable? Perhaps, depending on the exact situation, right? So, for instance, if the CEO were pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing for this software to be developed far faster than it should be, and then the software has bugs that cause a death, then it's that CEO's fault. How do we legislate that? We don't have the laws in place. Another big concern that I see for self-driving cars is the fact that now your cars can be hacked. So imagine that you have a disgruntled ex who engages in stalking behavior. Now they can hack into your car or hire someone to hack into your car. A truly bad actor could use being able to hack a car to kidnap a child and hold them for ransom. A different type of bad actor could even use hacking into a car to kill someone on purpose. That's just what I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure that somebody who really wanted to cause harm could think of many, many, many more ways to do so. Another, and I would say much lesser concern, is simply thinking about a culture that relies overmuch on automation. So I have a saying, technology is great when it works. And I typically pull that out when I'm the customer on a customer service call and the person that I'm trying to work with or who's trying to work with me is having some problem where their computer is slow. um, because that sort of thing, I know from my career, it just happens sometimes. And if we as a society get to a point where none of us know how to do things for ourselves, that is fine while all of these systems work. But the minute they don't, and again, that is inevitable, I'm not sure what society will do. And on a micro scale, we all experience this, right? People my age and older might remember that their math teachers, when they were in school, said, you won't always have a calculator with you. You have to learn how to do this. And now, all of us have a calculator in our pockets at all times. But it is still important to know things like math, not necessarily because you have to do things in your head, but because that thinking, that ability to think in that way is a valuable skill. Another micro example from my own life is for a while I had a car that would unlock when I pushed the button on the door handle if I had the key in my pocket, and would lock when I walked away from the vehicle. Now I drive a car that does not have that feature, and I am constantly worried that I'm going to leave my car unlocked and have it stolen. Because humans form these habits where we rely on this technology. None of this means that we can't ever have self-driving cars. Honestly, I think that that is the future, and not just cars, frankly. I think eventually we will have self-driving public transportation, but we have to be extremely careful, extremely cautious, and extremely aware on how we implement this sort of thing. Honestly, I'm looking forward to the day when we get past the transition and into the point where most everyone does have a self-driving car. I think that that will be really, really good for us as a society. I just worry about the transitional period. That's it for this one. Drop a comment down below letting me know where you agree, where you disagree. If you enjoy this content, hit like and or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.